A few years ago, I knew a guy named Mike. Mike wasn't reckless with money. He didn't gamble. He wasn't buying things he couldn't afford. He wasn't buried under credit card debt. In fact, if you had looked at his finances from the outside, you probably would have said he was doing pretty well. Every payday, he moved money into savings, month after month, year after year. Eventually, he had enough sitting in the bank that he started feeling something he hadn't felt in a long time: relief. He thought, okay, I'm finally safe. And that's where his story gets interesting. Because Mike had solved one financial problem without realizing he'd created another. His money was safe, but almost all of it was sitting there waiting while prices changed, waiting while opportunities passed, waiting while his future quietly got more expensive. Now, before you misunderstand me, I'm not about to tell you that keeping cash is stupid. Quite the opposite. Cash can save you when your car breaks down, when a furnace dies in January, when work suddenly disappears for a few months. There is a reason financially responsible people keep an emergency reserve. The mistake isn't having cash. The mistake is expecting every dollar to do the same job. Think about your money like a small team. One employee's job is to protect you. Another's job is to grow. Another helps you earn more. And eventually, some dollars can be put to work producing income. Once you see money this way, your entire financial life starts looking different. But Mike didn't understand this at first, and the reason is something almost nobody teaches you when you're young. We learn how to save money long before we learn what saved money is supposed to become. Get a job, get a checking account, save something, don't spend everything. All good advice, but eventually the question has to evolve, because saving is the beginning of the conversation, not the end. Mike had spent years getting good at the first part. He just hadn't learned the second part. And that second part starts with something painfully simple: purchasing power. Imagine you have $100 today. If the things you buy become more expensive over the years, that same $100 may not stretch as far later. That's the basic problem inflation creates. It doesn't have to look dramatic. Nobody sends you a letter saying, "Congratulations, your money just lost some purchasing power." Your bank statement can still say $20,000. The number hasn't disappeared, but the world around that number has changed. That's what makes inflation so easy to ignore. It happens quietly, and quiet financial problems are often the ones that last the longest. So, what should Mike have done? Not emptied his savings account, not thrown his emergency money into whatever investment was trending that week. He needed to separate money by time horizon. Money needed now stays accessible. Money needed soon is handled differently. Money he doesn't need for many years can potentially take more investment risk in pursuit of long-term growth. That's a much more useful conversation than simply asking, is the stock market up? Because long-term wealth isn't built by predicting every headline. It is often built by having a reasonable plan and staying with it through the boring parts. Over long periods, returns can themselves generate returns. That's the basic idea behind compounding. And time is the part you can't buy back later. This is why a 42-year-old and a 62-year-old shouldn't necessarily make the same decision with the same dollar. But there was another thing Mike eventually discovered, and this one had nothing to do with the stock market. His most valuable asset wasn't his savings, it was his ability to earn the money in the first place. Think about it. If someone earning $55,000 a year develops a valuable skill and eventually earns $70,000, that difference can create thousands of additional dollars every year. Those dollars can then fund an emergency reserve, retirement contributions, investments, or a business. Sometimes the best investment available to you isn't an investment account. It's becoming better at something people are willing to pay for. A certification, a trade, sales ability, technical knowledge, management, a specialized skill. Your earning power can become a financial asset because it creates the capital that allows everything else to happen. And this is especially important when you're starting without a huge pile of money. If you have $3,000 invested, obsessing over tiny differences in investment returns may not change your life. Increasing your earning ability might. That's leverage most people overlook because it doesn't show up on a brokerage statement. Eventually, Mike started thinking about a third category, assets that could produce cash flow. Not because every asset produces income, and not because passive income is some magical button you press. Real assets come with real costs. A rental property has maintenance. A business has payroll. Equipment breaks. Markets fall. What matters is whether the economics work after the expenses and risks. But when they do work, productive assets can create something beautiful. Cash that can be reinvested. $1 doesn't have to stay $1 forever. It can become capital. Capital can become an asset. An asset can potentially produce cash flow. And that cash flow can become more capital. That's the cycle Mike had been missing. And then he noticed something else. He had spent years asking, "Can I afford this?" He had almost never asked, "What does this purchase do for me financially?" That's a subtle difference. You don't have to stop enjoying your money. Money is supposed to improve your life. The point is to stop confusing consumption with investment. A car can be useful. A home can be deeply valuable to a family. A luxury purchase can make you happy. But enjoyment and wealth creation are different jobs. Once you start doing that, your decisions get much clearer. Eventually, Mike built a simple system. First, enough accessible cash to handle the surprises life throws at you. Second, consistent long-term investing for goals decades away. Third, money and time invested into becoming more valuable. Fourth, carefully chosen assets or businesses that have the potential to produce cash flow. Notice what isn't on that list. Buy things that make me look successful. That wasn't the plan anymore. The plan was much less exciting. Automate the important things. Keep learning. Invest consistently. Keep enough liquidity to sleep at night. And let productive assets grow only as your financial foundation gets stronger. That last part matters. Because the purpose of building wealth isn't to spend your entire life staring at a number on a screen. It's to eventually buy yourself choices. The choice to leave a bad job, the choice to help your kids, the choice to take a month off, or simply the choice to wake up without money being the first thing you're afraid of. That's what financial freedom actually means to most people. Not billionaire status. Options. And options usually come from assets that support your life instead of constantly demanding from it. So let's go back to Mike for a second. He still had a savings account. He still kept cash. He still invested. He still spent money learning. He still owned productive assets. But now every dollar had a reason for being where it was. That changed the way he felt about money. Before, a large bank balance made him feel safe. Now, the entire system made him feel prepared. And there's a big difference between those two feelings. Safety says, nothing bad can happen. Preparation says, something bad might happen and I can handle it. That's a much stronger place to live from. So, if you're watching this with $2,000 in the bank, don't feel behind. If you're watching with $20,000, don't assume you've figured it all out. And if you're watching with $100,000, don't assume the biggest number wins. Ask 4 simple questions instead. What part of my money needs to protect me? What part can I leave alone long enough to grow? What can I invest in myself to increase my income? And eventually, what assets can I own that produce value without requiring every hour of my time? You don't need to solve all 4 today. You just need to start giving your money direction. Because here's what Mike finally understood. Wealth isn't usually built by one brilliant decision. It's built by ordinary decisions repeated for a very long time. Save, invest, learn, build, reinvest, then do it again. Eventually, something strange happens. You stop measuring progress only by how hard you're working. You start measuring it by how much of your financial life continues working when you're not. And that's when money starts becoming more than something you earn. It becomes something you build. So the next time your paycheck hits your account, don't ask only, how much can I save? Ask the better question, what job does this money have? Because once you understand that, there's another mistake waiting for you, the one people make after they finally start investing. And that mistake can quietly cost you far more than inflation ever did.